Hello, Walter.
Hey, Maria.
How are
How
you?
are you? Okay, good. That's good.
Oh, we are the only ones?
Yes, sir. Want to switch
Probably he
off the
forgot.
recording?
He probably
I'll remind
forgot. What?
On Kuf Daled 104. My Rebbe, my Rebbe Lozer Reb Shimon, the Tanya. Rebbe Omer Hadam Ratzala or Bifnei Atzmo, that even if the animal was skinned separate from the meat prior to the zrika, and then you do the zrika, it is provides ritzui for the ore, and the Kohanim could get the ore, even if the ore has been skinned already. However, Kishuim Abasar, if the hide is connected to the meat, Noilad bo psul ben kodim zrika ben lachar zrika, if there's an invalidation that happens, whether it's before zrika or not, hareu kayotzubo, then the hide is treated exactly like the meat. Since the meat is puzzled, the ore, the Kohanim would not get the hide either. So first of all, he says that if the animal had been skinned prior to the zrika sadam doesn't work to give the Kohanim reshus in the hide. And uchashum abasar, and when the hide and the meat are together, then it's not like the Tanakama. Then noilabopsul kodim zrika, since if there was an invalidation prior to zrika, then there was never a time where the korban was valid, and therefore the hide would not be given by the Kohanim. But achar zrika, let's say the animal was intact prior to zrika, and then they did zrika, and then you strip it. Since the meat even had 1 second of ritzur because you did zrika, then you could be yafshiten of or kohanim. You could strip the hide, and the hide goes to the kohanim. And the Gemara wants to now maybe argue that this machlokas between Rebbe and Rabbi Lozer Reb Shimon was an earlier machlokas tanoi. Lema b'Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua Kamiflagi, the Tanya. V'asita olotecha habasar v'adam.
¿Qué pasó?
You shall.
Ana,
You
¿qué
shall.
pasó?
You shall.
¿Llamaste? ¿Me
Mute
llamaste?
yourself.
You shall.
Maria, mute yourself.
No, I'm sorry. Okay.
You shall be makriv your ola, the meat and the blood. Says Rabbi Yeshua Omer, im ein dam ein basar. Let's say the blood has been lost or been contaminated with tumah, whatever. If you have no dam, you cannot put the basar on the mizbech to be burned. Vice versa, im ein basar ein dam. If you have no meat left, then there's no zrika. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, no. Dam afal pi shein basar. Even if the meat, we don't have it, it's been lost, or it's been contaminated with tumah, you can still do zrika sadam. Shene'amar v'dam zvachecha yishafech. Im kein matam od lemer olasecha basar v'adam. If you just need the dam, why did the Torah say basar v'dam? Lo lecha. Ma dam bezrika basar bezrika. That just like, how do you apply the blood? You throw it. So to the meat. Revach yesh ben kevesh l'mizbech. There was a space between the wrap and the mizbech. So therefore, in a sense, the meat was thrown on the mizbech like the dam was thrown. Leimaman domer hutzak Rabbi Eliezer. Perhaps Rebbe, who says that even if you have the ore by itself, the zrika can affect it, even though it's not attached to the meat. And maybe that follows Krab Eliezer, who says that you can do zrika even when there's no meat. Umandam and Loyhort, so the one who says that the hide cannot be treated separately, holds Karab Yeshua, that you don't do the zrika if there's no meat. So the Gemara says no. Alibid Rav Eliezer kulam lo pligi. Everyone, according to Rav Eliezer, would say that the zrika would allow the kohanim to take the hide, even though there's no meat. Where would there be a machlokes? Ki plig alibid Rabbi Yeshua. Mandamar loy hurtza, one who says that the hide cannot be given to the kohanim with zrika if the hide is separate. That's Rabbi Yeshua. Mandamar hurtza, the one who says you can get the hide. Rabbi Yeshua only had that halacha about not throwing the blood if there's no meat, only by meat, the lekab seder kohanim. If there's no zrika, either way the kohanim are not going to get the hide, so they don't lose anything. Aval but regarding if you have the hide, where the zrika has been done already, the ikab seder kohanim, if you say that they don't get it, it would be a loss to them. Maybe I feel Rabbi Yeshua moida. Maybe even Rabbi Yeshua would agree that the kohanim could keep it. And why would we have a precedence to say that? We have the following halacha, the Tanya. Nitma basar. An ola's meat becomes tameh, or nifsal, or was taken out of the azar. Yatsa chutz l'klai. Eliezer Rama Yizrok. Now, the meat is never going to be permitted to be eaten. Yet Rabbi Eliezer says you can do the zrika, and therefore you fulfill the korban, even though there's no eating of the meat. Rabbi Yeshua was one who said if there's no blood, there's no meat. There's no meat, there's no blood throwing. So l'chatchila he says lo yizrok. However, if the kohen did it without asking, moed Rabbi Yeshua shem zara kurtza, that the korban is accepted. So Rebbe would hold that Rabbi Yeshua would say, even though there's no meat, if he does the zrika, the kohanim can get the hide. Okay, so we accept that. Johnny, we're on Kuf Dalid, right where the Gemara gets wide. Arav Chanina's Gana Kohanim. He said that he had never seen the hide being taken out and being burnt. So v'lo arei parman nisrafim musrim nisrafim. The inner parim, right? The par helam dover, the par yom kippurim. All of that, you take the hide and you burn it outside because you burn the whole animal. So the Gemara says lemitzvos and lokamina. Not Rav Chanina never said his story about something that's carried out in a proper way. That's proper to burn the hide in that way. We're talking about the korban becoming invalidated and having to burn the hide because of that. Now, when does that occur? We're talking about some kind of psul before you did the zrika and before you removed the hide. So why don't we think Rav Chanina ever saw that? Chlutz kamina. We're talking about a case where the hide had already been separated prior to zrika. So that exists. You could have a case where the kohanim stripped the animal before they did the zrika. Now, the Rabbi Eliezer, Rab Shimon Domer, Ein Adam Ratzala Or Bifnei Atzmo. According to Rabbi Eliezer, who said that kind of zrika will not allow the kohanim to get the hide. So there obviously were cases like that. Why did Rav Chanina's Kana Kohanim say there was never a case? So the Gemara says Rav Chanina Rebbe Svirle. So Rebbe held that if the hide had been removed prior to zrika, even though the meat has become possible, the hide can be rendered allowed to be given to the Kohanim after the Zrika. The boy said, if we want to give you another answer, Filu took Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon. Rabbi Chanina could be following Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon, where the hide becomes possible when the meat becomes possible, whether it's stripped or not. Moed Rebbe she'ein hefsher kodem zrika. But Rebbe will at least agree that in most cases the hide was not stripped prior to zrika, and perhaps that's why Rav Chanina never saw it. The Gemara says, we had a case where they stripped the hide, and then they found that the animal was treifa when they checked its internal organs. Now that's clearly was there all the time. So it was there even before the zrika. We should burn the hide according to everybody. Why would Rav Chanina say never saw it? So perhaps Rav Chanina held ksaver nimtzis treifa of ne'me'ayim eratza. Perhaps since the treifa was found later on, and the zrika was done before, he would hold that the Kohanim can get the hide in that case. And Dekanami, we can show it from the Mishnah, Diktani, Rabbi Kiva. Midvarav lamadna from Rav Chanina, we learned, she'amavshikas abachor v'nimsa treifa. If you remove the hide of a bachor and you found that it was treif, he also a Kohanim ba'oro. The Kohanim could benefit from the hide. Shema mina, that you wouldn't burn the hide in that case. Elamai kamash one Rabbi Kiva. If all along Rav Chanina is teaching us the same thing, why is Rabbi Kiva repeating it? Kamash mal afilu bigvulin. It's not just if it was found treifa in the base of Mikdash. Even if it's found treifa outside the base of Mikdash, it would have the same din. Rav Rabbi Kiva. V'af Rabbi Kiva lo amar ela kishihitiru mumcha. The Kohanim can get the hide of a bechor, but that's once a bechor is found to have a mum by an expert. Avalo hitir mumcha lo. V'hilchos k'divrei chachamim, who disagreed with Rav Chanina, and who said that even if later on you find that the animal is treifa, you'd have to burn the hide. Mishnah. Horim an Yisrafim usirim an Yisrafim. If Klal Yisrael violated a law which Bezdin passed in error, so they bring a par elam davar shel tzibur, or they bring a salt year if it was avodah zarah, and they were taken out and burnt outside of Yerushalayim in the Beis Hadeshen. So, bisman shein yisrafim kimitzvason, when there's no psul and you're just carrying out the normal burning, yisrafim bebeis hadeshen, they're burnt in the Beis Hadeshen, which is chutz lamachana, the three machanos. Umetamim b'gadim, whoever burns it becomes tamei. V'meinan yisrafim kimitzvason, if these korbanos had some kind of invalidation. Nisrafim bebeis abira, there was a place to burn it in the Azar itself. The person who burns it does not become tamei. When they would carry it outside of the machanois, outside of Yerushalayim, they would string them up on sticks and carry them. And yotzar rishonim chutz l'chomos hazara. Once the people in front carrying it on the sticks left the Azara, even though the people behind, v'achronim lo yotzar, are still in the Azara, rishonim etamim b'gadim, v'achronim einam etamim b'gadim ad sheyetzu. Only the people in front become tamei, the people in back are not tamei. Yatsu, once they both are out, elu v'elu etamim b'gadim. Reb Shimon Omer, einam etamim ad sheyutza sa'or beruban. If they get involved in the burning process, when the majority of the animal had not been burnt yet, then they become tamei. Nita chaboser, once the majority of the meat is burned, Ein Asarf B'Tamei Begadim. My bira. What does it mean that these parim anisrafim were burnt in the bira? That was Machna Levia, any part of the Harabayas, and there was a Beis Hadesh in there. Everything, the whole Beis Hamikdash is called the bira. Shenemar habira asher achinosi. Three places were called Beis Hadesh. Beis Hadesh in Gadol Azara. There was a place in the Azara, Shesham Sarfim Psulei Koche Kochim. If the meat or the emurim of a chatas or an asham or an ola became puzzle, they burnt it there. The emure Koche Kalim. The innards of Koche Kalim that became puzzle. Uparman Nisrafim, Usriman Nisrafim, Sheira ben Psul Kodim Zrika. If the Parman Nisrafim had some kind of psul prior to Zrika, so all these three cases were burned in the Beis Hadeshen in the Azara. Beis Hadeshen Achraya Barabayis. Right outside the Azara, there was another Beis Hadeshen. Shesham Sorfim Parman Nisrafim, Usriman Nisrafim, Sheira ben Psul Achar Zrika. If there was an invalidation after the Zrika, they burnt it there. However, Uchimitzvason, the normal place to burn, either the Para Nisrafim or the Sir Nisrafim, was Chutz L'Shalosh Machnos, outside of the walls of the city, outside of Yerushalayim. Tani Levi. Shloisha Beis Hadeshonim Ein. Beis Hadeshen Gadol Haya Bazara. The big burning place in the Azar Shesham Sorfim Sulei Koche Kochim, Chatas Asham, and all of that became puzzle. The Emori Koche Kolim. Uparmas Nisrafim Usran Nisrafim Sheira ben Psul ben Kodim Zrika ben Lachar Zrika. Any kind of psul of any other korban of Koche Kalim, where the psul occurred either before Zrika or after Zrika, they were burnt in the Azara. Ubeis Hadesh Nachraya Barabai Shesham Sorfim Porman Nisrafim Usran Nisrafim Sheira ben Psul B'Yitziyasa. The Beis Hadeshen in Harabayas, outside the Azara, was used for invalidations that occurred after they had left the Azara. Ukimitzvasan, the normal place to burn it was Chutz L'Shlosh Machnos. Now we know many types of psulim. Tuma, Yitzia, right, leaving the Azara. Boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Lina. We know if you let the korban survive beyond 24 hours. Let's say you did that with the Parman Nisrafim. Ma'usha told the Parman Nisrafim, is it a proper psul? Miyamirim kimanya linya. When does lina serve as a psul b'basar devar achila? Where meat was either eaten by humans or by the Mizbeach. So a chatas and an asham, the Kohanim eat the meat. The olah, the Mizbeach eats the meat. The problem is the Parman Nisrafim, there's no basar that is eaten on the Mizbeach. The whole animal is taken outside and burnt. So maybe lina will only be a psul in a type of korban where there's basar that's either going to be eaten by the Mizbeach or by a person. Avalani, the lav ne'achilin, nobody eats anything. Not the person, not the Mizbeach, lo. Maybe lina is not a psul, oidim aloishna. Or maybe it does make a difference. Amar Rava. Hamilsi boy lele Abaya. This was asked by Abaya. Upashtan l'me'ah, and he answered it from here. V'shavin, machlokes Reb Shimon Chachamim, she'im chishev, b'achilas porim, u'v'sreifasa. We know, machshavas pigul is when you shech the korban, you have in mind to eat of the meat, chutz lizmano, chutz l'mkomo. Now, these parman nisrafim, nobody eats them. And there's no eating of the mizbech of them. So if he has a machshava, b'achilas parim u'v'sreifason, It's not pigul. Lo asa klum. And my love, the machshava loy pasel, lina nami loy pasel. If pigul doesn't work, maybe lina doesn't work either to disqualify them. So the Gemara says no. Dila machshava hu deloy pasel, valina pasla. A machshava's pigul maybe doesn't work, but maybe lina does work. Toshma. Porim anisrafim, musrim anisrafim. Moyalin bayan mishahugdishu. You're not allowed to benefit once you were magdish these animals. Nishchetu, once they were shechted. Huchshru lipasa b'tful yom. Now, if a tful yom touches them, they become invalid through tuma. Or uv'machusar kippurim. If a machusar kippurim touches it as zav, zava, or yoletis, or tsaras. And here comes the kicker, uvalina. Once you shecht them, and if it goes beyond 24 hours, it's puzzle. My love, Lina's basar. Lo. Lina semurim. He kept the emurim. The emurim, it's not basar, but the emurim are burnt on the mizbeach. So if you let the emurim go beyond 24 hours, there would be a psul. And you're still chayv me'ila for one of the parman israfim if you benefit from them, even when they're on the Beis Hadesh and burning. When? Ad sheyutach habasar, until the majority of the meat is gone. Now, what are we talking about? That we're not talking about emurim there. With me, the sefer basar, reishanami basar, not the emurim. So what's this media area? Who says sefer basar reisha emurim? So we still do not have an answer to the question of whether Lina pasels the Purim and the Seir and Nisrafim. Toshma. The Tani Levi. We said one of the examples, She'ira ben Psul b'Yitziyasa, that you burnt it on the Beis Hadesh and the Arabayis if there was some kind of Psul to the Purim and Nisrafim as you took them out of the Azor. Now, isn't this referring to Lina, my love Lina? No. Psul tumo, psul yitziyah. Just somebody tummy touched it, or that it went out before it was supposed to go out, but not Lina. So therefore, we've been left without resolving the question. Okay, we dealt with the psul of Lina. What about the yitziyah? Boy, Rebbe Lozer. Yitziyah marsha tobu parman israfim v'tzran israfim. Now, what do you normally do with the parman israfim? You shecht it, then you take them out. You do zrika sadam, you take them out of the Beis HaMikdash, outside the city of Jerusalem, and burn it there. So how can you say, Bechlal, there's a psul of yitziyah? That's what the Gemara wants to know. Is there a psul of yitziyah by the parman israfim? So the Gemara asked, "My kamaboyle, alibedman de Omar, adayin lo gias manolotses." We're talking about if you have a chata, you have a shlomim, and you do zrika, then if you take it out, there's not an invalidation. If you take the meat of Kodesh Kalim out of the Azor prior to the zrika, then there's a psul. Now, according to Manda Omar, Adayin lo gias manolotses, because Kodesh Kalim can be eaten anywhere in Yerushalayim. It's just they weren't supposed to be taken out until after Zrika. Prior to the Zrika, it's got to stay in Azara. So, according to the opinion that you might take something out too early, so it's according to that man to Omar, mi amir hanimili basar. Now, a shlamim, we eat the meat. So there we can talk about a psul of yitziyah. The ain't sofa lot says chova. Now, you could eat a shlamim in Yerushalayim, but you could eat the meat of a shlamim in the Azara too. You're not forced to take it out. It's not obligated to take it out. Contradistinction, the Parman Israfim, you're obligated to take it out. Avalhani, the Soifan Lot says choiva, maybe there's no psul of Yitziyah. Maybe low. Oidil mo'achanami, lo gives man a lot says. You're not supposed to take the Parman Israfim out until you do Zrika Saddam. So let's say if you take it out before, maybe it is a psul of Yitzia. That's the shayla. Tor Shmad Toni Levi. One of the examples was Irabo psul b'Yitziaso. That in taking it out, that's when the psul occurred. Now, my lab psul Yitzia, we must be talking about Yitzia. No, psul tuma upsul lina. We're talking about tuma and lina, but not Yitzia. Boy Rabbi Lozer, Parman Israfim, Misran Israfim. Shiyotzer ruba b'miud aver mao. The majority of this animal has now been taken outside. When a part of one aver, which was less than a majority of that aver, had left the azar. Hach miutu de aver basaruba shadinanle. Do we say that this little piece of the aver is really subservient to the big piece of the limb, which is still inside the azara? V'halo nafkale. And perhaps it's not considered to have left. And since the majority of the animal is already outside, maybe the small part of the aver is considered outside. So the Gemara says, Pshita de lo shavkina ruba de be'ema v'zin basaruba de evorim. The majority of the animal has been taken outside. Who cares about the limb itself? That doesn't seem to be a proper shayla. Rather, 50% of the animal has been taken out of the azara by the more than 51% of one of the evor. And our shaila is haimi uta de aver, the small part of the limb which has not left the azar. Do we say basaroiv aver shadinanle? Do we follow? It's connected to the majority of the limb that's outside, so the inner side is viewed as being outside vanafikle. Odema basar be'ema shadinanle, and it's only 50-50. Teku. Okay. So, tomorrow 7:00.
I don't know. There's a board tomorrow night. I don't know if you're invited to Zisblatt.
Yeah, but it's